The chamber seemed to shift and morph around her. Her mind was being attacked with horrific memories that were all too real. In the world created, Lyra saw before her father on a battlefield as the Skald were nearly all wiped out in the battle for protection. "Remember, Lyra," the echo of her father said. "Never put your people in danger for any reason." Lyra's resolve wavered. Doubt crept into her mind, gnawing at her confidence. Was she truly worthy of leading her people? Was she strong enough to bear the burden of their future? She had never lost in a real fight, but as memories of her former mistakes replayed before her mind, she was faltering to get over herself. "I am not the daughter you always hoped for," Lyra told him softly. "I'm too curious. I'm reckless. I've failed before." But at this moment, Elara appeared. Elara knew about the events that had happened because she had had the chance to speak with Eris and learn about Lyra's life. As Lyra collapsed, Elara rushed to her. Lyra spoke to her mind, and let the memories play through before her. Her strength in fighting the battle she could never beat gave Lyra strength. In the moment she could finally release the doubts and she regained herself, she turned to face the door which was the door out, and walked forward and out. The physical trial complete, Lyra had proven that despite her small size, her people possessed unmatched intelligence and their unique insight into the universe. The day after she came back, and had completed the 3 trials, Lyra rushed over to Elara as she had promised she would be able to meet her in person. Lyra rushed over to her with a beaming smile. "Elara, I cannot thank you enough, and I am truly sorry that you could not see me personally take the trials. What matters isn't that, what matters is what we can now do," Elara replied. "It is an amazing experience to meet with you. I cannot tell you how proud I am of your accomplishments." Lyra looked at Elara gratefully. "I still cannot believe what has happened, but to truly express my gratitude, please allow me to show you around the conclave. Maybe we can enjoy some of their festivities for a bit." "That would be wonderful. There is still so much to see." As the two began walking through the world, they began sharing and expressing more about the differences they had. Lyra about her life, her childhood, her relationship with her father and her goals. Whereas Elara shared more about her home, of Earth, that the people wanted to create an ecosystem in which the galaxy could thrive. They discovered that they had much more in common than what they initially thought, and that their cultures were much more similar than different. They discussed the politics within the Galactic Council. As a small minority, the Skeld didn't have the power to have the strongest opinions, nor did they have the strength. However, Elara and the Alliance fleet were a beacon of influence amongst all of the smaller civilizations in the galaxy. They strategized that to succeed, they needed to band together and be a unified power. By the end of their walk, Lyra was finally confident in their strategy and success. As their preparations for the next trial commenced, the bond of friendship between Lyra and Elara deepened. The trials has ended, it would still take a month to get ready. She asked more about Earth, and Elara spoke to her about the oceans, the mountains and even the stars that hung so brightly there. And Elara heard about the intricacies of being the heir to a dynasty, as well as the responsibility that fell on her to uphold her planet to ensure its safety. They became inseparable, spending hours discussing everything from their homeworlds and families to their hopes and dreams for the future. They taught each other about their cultures, their beliefs, and their unique ways of seeing the universe. Lyra marveled at Elara's strength, her courage, and her unwavering commitment to justice. Elara, in turn, was inspired by Lyra's intelligence, her grace, and her deep connection to the natural world. As their connection grew, the differences between them seemed to fade into insignificance. The Earthling captain and the Skald princess, from 2 vastly different worlds, had found common ground in their shared humanity, and their shared desire to create a better future for the galaxy. The transport doors hissed open, revealing Lyra silhouetted against the harsh glare of the conclave's artificial suns. The Grand Assembly Hall, once a source of trepidation, now felt strangely familiar, a stage upon which she was ready to play her part. Gone was the hesitant ambassador who had arrived days before, replaced by a Skald princess radiating newfound confidence and resolve. The hall had fallen silent, the murmur of alien conversations replaced by a hushed anticipation. All eyes were on her. Lyra could still see a lot of people snickering and looking down upon her small frame, their expressions a mix of condescension, indifference, and a hint of curiosity. But she also noticed those who had once looked at her the same now seemed to nod to her, showing respect and gratitude. This change empowered her and let her finally feel confident. She walked with purpose, her footsteps echoing across the vast chamber. Though her frame remained slight, a palpable aura of strength and defiance seemed to emanate from her, drawing the attention of even the most jaded delegates. Elara and Eris followed close behind, a silent testament to the unwavering support they offered. Reaching the central podium, Lyra paused, taking a deep breath to center herself. The memories of the trials, the challenges she had overcome, flooded her mind, filling her with a sense of purpose she had never known before. She was no longer just representing the Skald. She was speaking for all those who had been silenced, overlooked, and underestimated. Honored delegates of the Galactic Conclave, Lyra began, her voice clear and resonant, cutting through the silence of the hall. I stand before you not as a representative of a small, insignificant system, but as a voice for all those who have been told they do not matter, were told that they aren't worth anything. The Skald may not possess the vast fleets of the Kthar Empire, or the technological prowess of the Cygnus Collective, but we possess something far more valuable: resilience, ingenuity, and a deep respect for life in all its forms. Her gaze swept across the assembly, meeting the eyes of every delegate, challenging them to see beyond the surface, to look beyond the labels and prejudices that divided them. The galaxy is a tapestry woven from countless threads, she continued, her voice rising with passion. Each thread, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, contributes to the beauty and strength of the whole. To tear out a thread, to silence a voice, is to diminish us all. These memories steeled Lyra's nerves as she continued her address. She spoke of the Skalda's history, their struggles, their triumphs, their deep connection to the natural world, and their unwavering commitment to peace. She spoke of their potential, their ingenuity, and their unique perspective that could enrich the galaxy. She also was not afraid to speak the truth and criticize even her own kind in her system. I challenge to treat all civilizations to show some respect. Every civilization is important in their own right, and each civilization deserves a life to survive. We should not be looking at who is more powerful but which are the most innovative and creative. She spoke with such honesty and from her core, so much that everyone couldn't help but look at the princess and acknowledge and be awed. Lyra concluded her speech, her voice filled with unwavering conviction. I ask you not for pity, not for favors, but for recognition. Recognize the Skald as equals, as valuable contributors to this galaxy. Give us a chance to prove what we are capable of. The assembly hall remained silent for a long moment, all of the ambassadors and soldiers thinking about the speech, and deciding about what to do with it. Then, the applause began, hesitant at first, but quickly swelling into a thunderous ovation that shook the very foundations of the conclave. The impact of Lyra's speech was immediate and profound. The atmosphere within the galactic conclave shifted palpably, the air heavy with a newfound sense of possibility and change. There were still those who clung to their prejudices, those who saw the Skald as nothing more than a footnote in the grand scheme of galactic politics. But their voices were now drowned out by a chorus of support, a rising tide of goodwill that threatened to overturn the established order. Most important, many members were deeply changed by what Lyra said. They were all different species and had come from different environments, but each of them were moved by the words she shared. Some even stepped forward to discuss potential avenues of support, or even alliances. But perhaps the most significant development was a change in the dynamics between the Earth Alliance and the Kthar Empire. While Zargith continued to sneer and threaten, some of the more pragmatic members of his delegation began to explore the possibility of a trade agreement with the Skald, seeing the potential benefits of tapping into their unique resources and technologies. The winds are shifting, Ambassador, Elara told Eris one evening, as they strolled through the conclave gardens, now a place of relative tranquility and acceptance. Your words have planted a seed of change, and it is beginning to take root. Eris smiled, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of the alien flora. It is all thanks to you, Captain, he said. Without your help, I would have never had the opportunity to speak my truth. Alara's smile faded slightly, a shadow of concern crossing her face. Do not underestimate yourself, Ambassador. You are the one who has the courage and the vision to lead your people. I am merely a catalyst, a facilitator. We've all been underestimated at some point in our lives, Alara added. But the newfound hope and goodwill within the conclave were fragile, built upon a foundation of shifting alliances and competing interests. The winds of change had begun to blow, but they were not yet strong enough to weather the storm that was brewing on the horizon. News reached Lyra and Alara that High Commander Zargith had, privately, sent ships to take out what they needed from his planet. If not, then he was to cause as much chaos as possible. As Alara began investigating, she also found out some alarming information of several delegates and members of the High Council was planning some sabotage acts in the conclave. One of the delegates, that was particularly close to Alara herself, was suddenly found to be on the payroll of the Empire. This led to her heart sink to her chest. All this, after what happened? Alara responded. The situation was growing more treacherous by the hour. Someone within the highest ranks of the Alliance was working against them. She and Lyra knew they could trust no one, which would lead to further and possible terrible situations occurring. This is worse than I imagined, Alara said gravely, studying the decrypted message on her holopad. Zargith isn't just trying to annex the Skald system. He's trying to destabilize the entire Alliance. We cannot let him succeed, Lyra replied, her voice filled with steel. If the Alliance falls, the Skald, and countless other systems, will be at his mercy. They knew what they had to do. They had to expose Zargith's conspiracy, to rally the forces of good within the Alliance, and to prevent a galactic war. But they were facing a powerful and ruthless enemy, one who had allies in the highest places. There must be a way, there must. But as she pondered, as if an act of God, she heard what she had wanted the most all her life. There was a way she could make it. It would be high risk, but she thought she would have a chance to do so. Alara, Lyra had spoken. I may have a plan. This sets the stage for an explosive confrontation, a desperate race against time, and a final showdown between the forces of peace and tyranny. The weight of the revelations crashing down upon them pressed down heavily on the Skald delegation. The glittering facade of the galactic conclave had shattered, revealing the brutal realities of interstellar power. The whispers and sneers, once mere annoyances, now seemed like sinister omens. Within the confines of their Spartan chambers, Lyra paced restlessly, her face etched with worry. The holographic projections of Skald's binary star system seemed to mock her, a reminder of the fragile beauty she was sworn to protect. We are walking a knife's edge, Alara, Lyra said, her voice strained. If I push Zargith too hard, he will strike, and Skald will be defenseless. But if I do nothing, he will take our galaxy anyway. They will just kill us, and take our land, I am afraid. Alara listened intently, her expression a mask of thoughtful concentration. She understood the immense pressure Lyra was under, the impossible choice she had to make. The skilled pilot understood that the best course of action was to prepare for war. We cannot afford to underestimate them. I have seen what they can do. This moment set the tone for the chapter. For the first time Lyra started to show her resolve. Eris, his small hands clasped tightly together, looked from Lyra to Alara. What do we do, Captain? How can we protect Skald from such a powerful enemy? Alara knew that there was no easy answer, no single path to salvation. This was a situation that required a delicate balance of diplomacy, strategy, and if necessary, force. We have to be prepared for war, said Alara as all eyes turned on her. But the question isn't how can we hold off this powerful empire, but will others come and fight as well? With that in the silence, it allowed for the plan to move forward. They all knew that what lay before them is treacherous, and only with a careful balance would they make the best decisions. Alara looked at Lyra. There will need to be people here that you can trust who have our backs. I am asking you for more patience. It would be too risky to put so many people into such danger, but with no choice they made it so. Lyra, despite her earlier hesitation, was decisive. For so long her people were pushed down, what choice does she really have? It was a decision made for her, and now she would make others in the Alliance listen. She will speak with words and fight with the strength of their beliefs. She would use each of her skills to get what was necessary. As the Skald were ready for this, she was the Skald and she would not back down. Eris, though hesitant, gave in, trusting the leadership of his daughter. The next several days were a blur of clandestine meetings and covert operations. Elara utilized the Alliance fleet's resources to gather intelligence on Zargatha's plans and identify potential allies among the smaller, overlooked systems. Lyra, with her newfound confidence and charisma, began to weave a web of alliances, reaching out to those who shared her vision of a galaxy built on cooperation and mutual respect. As the alliance grew, the Kthar Empire's influence within the conclave began to wane. Delegates who had once cowered before Zargath now dared to challenge his authority, emboldened by the growing movement of support for the Skald. Zargath, however, was not one to back down easily. "This is a turning point, Captain," Eris said, his voice filled with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "If we succeed, we can create a galaxy where strength and kindness can coexist, but if we fail..." Elara knew that the consequences of failure were dire. But she refused to give in to fear. She and Lyra had come too far, had risked too much. They would not back down now. The night before the final council meeting, Lyra stood on the balcony of her chambers, gazing out at the shimmering tapestry of the city. The twin moons cast long, ethereal shadows across the landscape, painting the alien architecture in hues of silver and black. "It has never been clearer than now," she said to Elara, as the captain stood at her side. "The galaxy cannot be changed, not as long as it is run with the same mentality." "You cannot have such thoughts, Lyra," Elara said. "Because of this you have earned many allies. You cannot say all that we did was for nothing." It seemed, however, like the weight of everything was finally getting to her. The pressure, the threats, the constant fear of failure, it was all threatening to overwhelm her. Elara put a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "Look at me, Lyra. You are not alone in this fight. You have my support, Eris's support, and the support of countless others throughout the galaxy. You are not just fighting for the Skald, but for something bigger, something more important." Elara had been a person that Lyra started to confide in about the fears and hardships that were ahead. That she had never felt such emotion when speaking with someone, even family. She had never been as honest, and the more she had spoken, the more she knew. And it was only right that they had chosen each other. Elara and Lyra spent the last few hours before the main conference discussing what their plan was, and what they should and shouldn't do when they begin the meeting with Zargath. As dawn approached, and the horizon began to bleed with the fiery hues of the approaching suns, Lyra stood before the mirror, her reflection staring back with an unsettling intensity. The royal robes of silver and indigo felt heavier than usual, the iridescent crystals of her crown pressing against her temples. For a fleeting moment, doubt gnawed at her. Was she truly ready for what lay ahead? Was she strong enough to bear the burden of her people's future? "You can do this, Lyra," Eris's voice echoed from behind. She looked back at the sight. Lyra and Eris exchanged a look of comfort. He still wore the same old robe and wore the same gentle look. She could do this. Steeling herself, Lyra straightened her shoulders, a newfound resolve hardening her features. She was Skald. She was a leader. And she would face whatever the galaxy threw at her, with courage, with wisdom, and with the unwavering support of those who stood beside her. "It is time, Father," she said, her voice ringing with newfound conviction. "Let us show them what we are made of." The first moments went by with tension. The delegate from all of the major planets gave their voices, sharing all of the opinions they have. But it was all leading to nowhere. The planets that would want the Skald to have power would be too few, and the Skald would need to have a powerful backing to keep its position. Zargath scoffed at the notion of Skelna having influence. "We have sat by politely and listened. I will not take any more insult towards my people, for it is not who I am. When it seemed as though they would lose the power, Elara had stood up. High Council, Elara said, her voice clear and strong, instantly commanding attention. I request a moment to speak on behalf of the Scald Galaxy system. A collective sigh rippled through the assembly, but the council president, a wise and impartial representative from the neutral Althean collective, nodded in approval. Very well, Captain Vance, the president said. You may proceed. Elara stepped forward, her gaze sweeping across the assembly. She spoke of the Alliance fleet's commitment to peace and justice, the importance of protecting smaller civilizations, and the invaluable contributions that the Scald could make to the galaxy. It is clear that the Scald have something to prove, Elara concluded. And I believe that they are more than capable of doing so. Therefore, I propose that the Alliance fleet commit resources to supporting the Scald Galaxy system, to help them develop their infrastructure, train their defenses, and share their unique knowledge with the rest of the galaxy. Her words were met with a mix of approval and skepticism. But this time, there was a new respect in the air, a willingness to consider the Scald's case. Zargith, his eyes burning with barely suppressed rage, rose to his feet. This is madness, he roared. Are you truly willing to squander Alliance resources on a backwater system that has nothing to offer but empty promises? Elara met his gaze without flinching. With all due respect, High Commander, she said, I believe the Scald have much more to offer than you realize. And I am confident that, with our support, they will prove to be a valuable asset to the Alliance. As soon as Elara had stepped down, Zargith strode on up. High Council, he said. He used all of his charismatic charm and silver tongue to dissuade and threaten the council members. At this point, Marcus and Lyra knew that it would be hard to win the fight alone, so this was when she did it. Before the council could vote, the intercom system began to play out in the council, showing that Cthar ships and soldiers were invading Scald territory. I was worried this might happen. Lyra calmly stepped up onto the podium. Members of the High Council, what does that mean for you? Does it mean nothing? We gave you everything we have, our technology to heal and repair ships, and now you are looking to kill us all. What is that? Lyra turned to Zargith. I will not stand idly by to let our people be killed. I will fight to my very last breath to protect the people that I love. To her surprise, her own security team approached the stand as well to block any attack. Her actions showed others that there were many out there were not to be underestimated. The other council members voted in Lyra's favor. The victory came at a great cost with such influence in the council. It would put them at a clear disadvantage. That evening Lyra spoke with Elara, after what seemed like a lifetime. Thank you for everything, Elara. It's all thanks to you. She beamed. We have so much more ahead to plan. This alliance has now caused people to be in a position to trust humans. Your action that you have done tonight will now ripple all across the star, and for the people, for every culture, but this was never meant to be some easy thing. You still have so much to do. Lyra nodded, knowing that this was only the beginning. For weeks after the decision, everything was fine. The Council and the ships of the Alliance fleet agreed to protect her. When Lyra next visited the city, he had the chance to see Marcus, and he greeted her with a warm smile. He held her hand tight and congratulated her. While she was happy that she was going, she spoke softly with Marcus. It all seems too good to be true. Marcus frowned. I will look around. If there is anyone that I can trust, it's definitely within the fleet. As she turned around to look at Marcus, a gunshot was heard. With lightning fast reflexes, Marcus pushed Lyra out of the way, just to see that it was a good friend of his who had shot the crossbow. I am sorry, Marcus, the man said in a trance. Our hand has been betrayed to us. I never wanted to shoot at you. There have been too many things going on. My team has been working undercover, and we found the source. That evening as they investigated, it turns out. It was some delegates had long signed treaties for other planets, and did not like how Lyra has came through and upset this relationship. With his friends dead, she was left as one of the most vulnerable out there. She had made the choice to change the future of her kind. Now, there was no turning back. This would now change the life of everyone.